bike riders. Here we go.
All right,
Can you look this way?
Guys, come up. Step to your left.
all right, who has any questions?
Can you step this way a little bit? Thank you.
How do you feel about the decision that was made inside today?
Well, look, obviously we're a little disappointed. We filed a motion and it was denied. However, we respect the court's ruling. We're preparing for our trial in October. We have a lot of other pretrial motions that we have filed and that we will file. And there's a common purpose of all these pretrial motions. It's to continue to ensure that Mr. Chesebro has not only a speedy trial, which we've demanded, but a fair trial. And it's pretty clear that the state is trying to use RICO in order to connect 3 or 4 different alleged conspiracies into one. Folks who have never met each other, folks who are in no way associated as a matter of fact or law. Again, we respect the court's decision. Clearly, we're going to be tried alongside Ms. Powell, but we will file additional motions to make sure that the trial that we have with Ms. Powell is fair and that Mr. Chesebro is judged on the evidence that's attributable to him and that the jury judges everyone on their own accord.
Man, do you think it's even realistic that the prosecution would be able to get their case through in 4 months? Because obviously, you're looking at the RICO or YSL case, and they're still in jury selection.
Well, 4 months is just for the trial, is what they're saying, and not jury selection. That's additional on top of it. But frankly, there's going to be probably about 20, 30 more motions that will need to be litigated because they're just wrong on the facts about when it's RICO, everything goes, and that's just not the case. And so the trial will be much more narrowly in scope if it's just the 2 of us going forward.
And let me say something about RICO. It's not just this case. We have seen several examples of what I would say is the weaponization of the Georgia RICO statute. Not only this case, but the case that was indicted yesterday. As you may have seen, 61 defendants, including lawyers who were simply trying to raise bail for some other defendants, got indicted in a RICO case by the Attorney General's office. There's a RICO trial going on right now as we speak against a bunch of rappers who really have no other connection other than being a part of the same record label. And now you have this case where they're trying to connect 3 or 4 very different alleged conspiracies into one. Again, I would argue it is the weaponization of the Georgia RICO statute, and I would implore the Georgia General Assembly, when they get back into session early next year, to explore ways to amend RICO to avoid this type of weaponization in the future.
Do you know if this will actually be going to trial on October 23rd for Mr. Chesebro and Ms. Powell as well?
As the way it is right now, yes. Mr. Chesebro and Mr. Powell will be going to trial October 23rd. Now, as the judge indicated, there is a very significant unknown out there, which is the possibility of removal. That's up to a federal judge, Judge Jones. Judge Jones has not yet issued his decision. If Judge Jones were to remove this case, I think there's an argument that all of the defendants, at least initially, are removed alongside the ones who are entitled to removal. But in that circumstance, you might expect us to try to file a motion to remand, because to be quite clear, this is where we want to be. You know,
do you think this will make it to the election? Will get to that, make it to the election?
I hope not. But that's only on behalf of my client. And let me make something else clear. My client is Ken Chesebro, okay? My client's not a politician. My client has never run for public office. My client has never met or talked to the vast majority of his alleged co-conspirators. And so I am not disrespecting any other strategy for any other defendants to get more time. If they want more time, they're entitled to it. And every defendant and every defense lawyer has their own circumstances that they have to deal with. All we can talk about is our circumstances and the circumstances of our client, Mr. Chesebro, and we are ready to go forward to trial on October 23rd. Now, I want to say another thing. The state consistently says that they're ready to go to trial as well. The state responded to our speedy trial demand, and everyone said, oh, they called Mr. Chesebro's bluff. I want to make something clear. There was no bluff. We are statutorily entitled to a speedy trial, and that's what we asked for. With all due respect to the district attorney's office, they had absolutely no choice but to say okay. Now to say that all 19 defendants should be tried together, including ones that don't want to avail themselves of the speedy trial demand, is really just nonsensical.
Second with Mr. Chesebro,
that they need 4 months with 150 witnesses based on if it's you and Powell, how long do you guys need for a trial, and how many witnesses do you anticipate?
Well, I'm not trying to sound too much like a defense lawyer, but quite frankly, we think that there's a good chance that the state's case will be dismissed on a motion for a directed verdict after they rest. So we're hopeful we don't need much time at all. But we haven't made those decisions. I want to remind you and everyone else that the state has the burden. The state must prove their case and every single element of their case beyond a reasonable doubt. Mr. Chesebro has absolutely no burden. So that's not to say one way or the other of whether we're going to plan to put up witnesses. Quite frankly, we were waiting for this hearing to decide who we were going to be sitting next to in order to start making those strategic decisions. One more question, then we do have to go.
Have you spoken with Mr. Chesebro after today's decision, and what was his response?
I have not spoken with Mr. Chesebro. Thank you all so much. We appreciate it.
Thank you. Mr. Giuliani's counsel